Okay, today we're doing 3-1 inequalities in their graphs. So remember, we have less than, this should be a review, greater than, remember the mouth is always eating the bigger number, less than or equal to, and then greater than or equal to. So remember when we're doing equations, you just have one, your answer is just one number, but in inequalities, it's many numbers. Oops, just one O there. Okay, so let's do a few problems here. So number one is just, are these solutions to the inequality? So I'm just going to put solutions question mark. Okay, so we have -3, 5, and 12. And the inequality that we're dealing with is x is less than or equal to 5. So what you would do is just say, is -3, if you plugged in -3 for x, is that less than or equal to 5? Your answer would be yes. Then you would plug your 5 in, so you're going to have 3 answers. Is 5 less than or equal to 5? Yes, it's equal to 5. And then is 12 less than or equal to 5? The answer would be no. You do not have to write all those out. I'm just showing you. Okay? Well, what if we had x is greater than or equal to 5? All right? So, is -3 greater than or equal to 5? No. Is 5 greater than or equal to 5? I'm sorry. Is +5 greater than or equal to 5? Yes. And then is 12 greater than or equal to 5? Yes. So that's all you would do on those. You would just say yes or no. Let me exit out of there. Okay. Okay, so another one might be, is 3 a solution to the inequality given? And the inequality is 2 minus 5 times x is greater than 13. So you're going to take the 3 and you're going to plug it in for the x. Remember, this x is just representing the 3. So then 2 minus 5 times 3, remember we put that in parentheses so it doesn't become 53. And then 2 minus 15, because we do PEMDAS. So this becomes -13 is less than I cannot speak. -13 is greater than 13. Is this true? No, because -13 is less than 13. Okay? So the next thing we need to remember is when we're graphing. Okay, so if it is a less than or greater than, remember we have an open circle, which I'll explain more in a minute. If we have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we have a shaded in circle. Okay, so if we're filling a graph in, if it's something is greater than or equal to, we would shade it in and shade it over to the right. We'll do some examples. Okay. Okay, so if we're going to graph, I don't know what number we're on, so I'm not even going to put one, where it says to graph x is less than 3. Okay, so the only thing I require on my graphs is that you have at least 3 numbers. Okay, so we have our line. I always put the number we're dealing with in the middle, and then I put a bigger number. I just put the next one. You could put 10 there if you wanted, and I put a smaller one. And then from there, it's less than, it's not an equals to, so I'm actually going to change my color again. So we do an open circle because it does not include the 3. And then what number is less than 3? Is it 2 or 4? The 2 is less than 3, so we're going to shade all the way down, and it keeps going. This means that 1 and 0 and -1, all these numbers down here are included, but you just have to represent it by shading it like that. Okay? Now, what about if we want to graph m is greater than or equal to -2? Okay, so again, you just need to do the 3. Let's start with -2. A number that's bigger than -2 would be -1. One that is smaller is -3. So you kind of have to remember that about your negatives. And now it's greater than or equals to. So that means it includes the -2. So you shade that in. And it says it's greater than -2. So you have to think, is -3 greater or is -1 greater? Okay, well the -1 is greater. Okay, so we shade it like that. Now sometimes they're going to give you the number first. All right, well when you go to graph, you do the same thing. We have our 3 numbers. We can put -1 here. A number that's bigger than -1 is 0. One that's smaller is -2. And we know right away it's going to be closed because it's less than, it's equal, has an equals to. But you need to look at it from the Q. Okay, so this is -1 is greater than or equal to Q. But when you go to graph, you need to think of it from the Q. So we're wanting all numbers that are less than -1. Okay, if you were to rewrite this, it would look like this. Q is less than -1. So if you're reading it, Q is less than -1. So you want all the numbers down here. If you can't figure that out, plug these in and see if it works. If I plugged in -2, is -1 bigger than -2? Yes. So that's the way I would shade. Okay. Let me close that and get another sheet up here. Okay, so sometimes you're given a graph and you have to write the inequality for us. You have to do it backwards. Oops, I misspelled that. Inequality. So we're given a graph. So in your book, the graph will probably be bigger, meaning it has more numbers. Okay, if this is our graph, you have to come up with what it would represent. What's the inequality? Okay, so it doesn't tell you what variable to use, so you can use whatever one you want. Okay, and we know it's going to be greater than, because it's shaded over here to the right, and it's going to be greater than or equal to because it's shaded in, the circle is shaded in, x is greater than or equal to 4. Okay. Now if we did another one, -5, -6, -4, this way, okay, so we know it's going to be an x or whatever and a -5. And we know it's just going to be less than or greater than because it's not shaded in. And since -6 is less than -5, we know it's going to be x is less than -5. Okay? All right, few more. Let me see if I can squeeze it down here. You need to still write an inequality, okay? But write an inequality for the words must be at least 16 to drive. So if I said you have to be at least 16 to drive, how would you write that as an inequality? Sometimes people get confused on these. Okay, so think about it. Can you be older than 16 to drive? Okay, you have to be at least 16 to drive. Can you be less than 16? It depends on if you live on a farm and stuff like that. But in this situation, you have to be at least 16. So you can be greater than or equal to 16 is how you would write that. Okay? Let me see if I can get one more on here. Okay. How about, that pen doesn't always show up, that color. What about speed limit is maximum of 65? Okay, so we still have our x and our 65. You can go 65 max, but can you go over it? Technically you can, but you might get a ticket. You should go less than it. So you should go less than or equal to 65 miles per hour. Okay? And that's how you would write those. You kind of got to think about those for a minute. I think I have a little comic. There you go. You can read that.